What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade, basketball analysis coming to y'all with a quick video. We're going to talk about the Los Angeles Clippers and how they have been playing this year. Right now, I believe they have the number one record in the NBA, tied with the Los Angeles Lakers, and they have looked absolutely fantastic. Yeah, they had the 50-point blowout, and yeah, they blew the game against Golden State. But this team has been literally firing on all cylinders, knocking down threes at an incredible rate, unrealistic rate to be able to keep this up, especially some of these guys shooting above 50% like Paul George, and shooting above 40% is already tough enough. But this team, everybody's shooting great from three besides Serge Ibaka, and even him is shooting pretty decent for a big. At 34% is pretty decent for him too, as he has never been known as a great three-point shooter, but a guy that can knock down threes, and he's still been able to do that so far. But when I look at this team, I am amazed of how they've been composed. Maybe it's the change for Ty Lue that's holding these guys accountable, that's actually running sets to get these guys open, trusting them to make the right play, allowing them to have some type of a green light because he have seen them what they can do in practice the last couple years, and he understands that they can make these shots. A lot of these guys are not non-hesitating shooting, which means they're getting the ball and letting it fly, even if they have, a semi-contested shot. And the shots are just falling all over the place. Patrick Beverly has looked pretty decent too from three. And he's not really being known as a scorer, but he's shooting more threes and he's shooting decently from three. The thing about them is still defensively. They have all the tools and all the talent that they would need to be a great defensive team, but they haven't been nowhere close to as good as I thought they would be. Like the Lakers have been better defensively than majority of the teams in the league, but the Clippers actually do have the right players at the right positions to be a great defensive team as a unit or even individual coverage. And that just clearly hasn't been the case the last 2 years, like everybody thought that they should and would be, but it has obviously never came to fruition or even happened yet. And I don't really see them becoming a great defensive team because you build that early in the season, then you sustain it, and they haven't been able to do either or. But I always say if you can't stop anybody, you got to be able to outscore everybody, and the Clippers have been able to do that in majority of their games. They're literally blazing teams and just setting them on fire when they're done. So it's no chance for them to come back. And even the games that they have lost, it's because they couldn't hit shots consistently. And if you live by the jump shot, you die by the jump shot. We seen it with Golden State and Houston. You're going to get a lot of blowouts if you're hitting these shots because they count for so many points because they live by the three and dying by the three right now. And if they're falling, it's easy to get a 10 to 20 point lead because they count for 2 to 3 points per, and they don't even count free throws. So when I look at the Clippers, I'm just looking at them in amazement. They have played better than I thought, even though I did see them coming into the league this year as a number two seed in the West under the Lakers. They have pretty much proved that they're up there with the Lakers when it comes to talent, and they're up there with the Lakers when it comes to matchup because they still give the Lakers some problems because of how their team is built and how they play. And it is going to be amazing to see if they actually live up to the hype and be able to compete with the Lakers in the playoffs. Obviously, we still looking to see what Paul George would do. We have seen him do this multiple times where he has a superstar caliber season, but he fades in the playoffs. So I'm not going to get too excited. I'm not going to be too happy for Paul George because we have seen this before. And usually, when he doesn't perform in the playoffs, he always blames it on something or somebody, like he has done the last 3 to 4 years when he hasn't been able. My shoulder is Doc Rivers. I was mentally locked in. But if this is going to be your second best player, you need him to perform in the playoffs because that's the whole point of getting them. You get Kawhi Leonard and Paul George as a duo because you feel like they can get you to a championship together, which they haven't done yet, and I don't believe that they will be able to get it done even this year. But you still have to see if they can do it, and you have to see how things play out because you never know. But when you're trading so many draft picks and so much talent to get this duo together, you would expect them to be able to gel well and play well, and they have been able to do it offensively, but they still have a lot to prove when it comes to the playoffs because that's all that matters to me with the Clippers. I'm not really worried about them being a great team. I'm not really worried about them making the playoffs. I just want to see was this a smart decision for Kawhi Leonard to go to the Clippers and bring them their first ever championship. And that's what I really honestly and truthfully want to see from them. And that's something that we haven't seen just yet. But what I will say is, at the end of the day, we have to see what Kawhi Leonard is going to do because he is playing more games. It looks like he's not making excuses. It seems like he has been playing a little bit better with the back-to-backs to me, and he's going to have to do that. If this team wants to be consistent and if this team wants to play their best basketball when it matters most, they have to start that from the jump. And I think that's the biggest difference from last year. Paul George is missing time and Kawhi Leonard is missing time. Then COVID comes and this team could not really get the chemistry together. This team could not really get on the same page. This team could not really gel as well as we thought they would, even though they're still not a great defensive team. Like I said, offensively, they look more in sync. They know where their guys should be. They're more comfortable with guys taking shots. They believe in the team and trust them to make the right decisions. And I feel like Ty Lue has done that too as a coach. Like I said, giving this guy freedom a little bit in the ability to have the green light because he trusts that these guys can take and make these plays, and he's allowing them to do it even if it's not in the flow of the offense. And even Nicholas Batum, not really been known as a great three-point shooter in his career, but he's shooting a bunch of them, and he actually shooting pretty decently from them. And he has been the ideal fit that they needed him to be because he's a lone defender that can switch and guard multiple positions while also being able to put the ball on the floor, make passes, and make shots from the perimeter, which is something that people didn't believe. People thought Nicholas Batum was the worst player in the league or one of the worst players, and you pick him up for basically nothing. And next thing you know, boom, you actually have an NBA starting caliber player that can be a matchup nightmare for most teams. And that was a steal for the Clippers because nobody really knew what he was going to bring to the table. Nobody really thought that he had a lot left in the tank, but he has been a perfect fit and been exactly a little bit of what they was missing, if I had to be honest. But this team is deep. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of guys that can create by themselves. They have a lot of guys that can make plays with Kawhi Leonard or Paul George off the court, which is important. And they have wings that can hit threes and defend multiple positions, which is probably the biggest thing that you would need if you want to win the title. They have all that on the roster too. The question just will be, can they beat the Lakers? As we know, this is the Lakers conference. They have been the Western Conference Finals. They have been the NBA champions, and they are still tied for the best record in the NBA and tied for the best record in the Western Conference. So it's not like the Lakers are falling off and the Clippers look amazing. They both look good, but it's just about, can Pandemic P step his game up when it matters most, and will they actually play the basketball that's needed to actually win? I'm not really surprised that the Clippers are this good. I'm not really surprised that the Clippers have been off to a good start. I just basically want to see, is this sustainable for a long season, which is 72 games? And if it is, will they play the same way that they're playing now, which is great basketball, in the playoffs? Because this is what they was missing last year with everybody in and out the lineup. This is what they was missing throughout the whole year, and that was one of their cop-outs and excuses. We couldn't get on the same page. We couldn't get everybody playing together. We couldn't get this guy. This was happening. This trade happened, and they just don't have that this year so far. And if they can play this well and they can be this dangerous from the perimeter, they can be anybody, especially if Paul George plays like this or better. And that's going to be the question. So if I'm a Clippers fan, I'm happy. If I'm a Clipper fan, I'm feeling good right now. But like I told y'all in the beginning of the video, as a person that have seen the Clippers, as a person that already have respect for the Clippers when it comes to the regular season the last 2 years, having them finishing second this year and last year, which they did last year. We just got to see if they do it this year. To me, I'm not going to be excited until I see it done in the playoffs. They brought Paul George and Kawhi Leonard together to see what they can do as a duo, and they really believed that duo with the team that they had last year was enough. And obviously that wasn't the case. And I'm not going to get too excited for a team and players that have had histories of flopping or not performing to their capabilities. So it's more of a wait and see. I like what I'm seeing. I'm not surprised too much about what I'm seeing, but I still do have to see it when it matters most, as most of us have the Clippers as a championship team and a championship contender, which means that we expect them to be great, and now we expect them to be able to compete for a title. And that's something that they didn't prove last year, and that's something that they still have to prove this year, and we'll see if they get it done. Other than that, check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link in the description comment section below. Check out my Facebook page, analysisplayground.com. That will also be in the description in the comment section below. You can buy merchandise just like this on my Facebook page. You can also buy merchandise on my Spreadshirt. You can message me and customize the hat and the shirt the way that you want it to be, and I can get shipped out to you. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. Check out my older videos. Comment, like, subscribe, and share. Quinn Wade, basketball analysis on go.